all about? It's all about love. What's it all about? It's about justice. What's it all about? It's about love and justice and the way we can all live in the world. When you let down the wall, it's all about love. When you tear down a wall, it's about justice. Building bridges, crumbling walls, it's about love and justice and the way we can all live in the world. When you hold a woman's hand, it's all about love. When you protect her right to choose, it's about justice. When your heart and your head are connected, it's about love and justice and the way we can all live in the world. What's it all about?
It's all about love.
What's it all about?
It's about justice.
What's it all about?
It's about love and justice and the way we can all
live in the world. When you share your thoughts with me, it's all about love. When we agree to disagree, it's about justice. The freedom to speak, it's about love and justice and the way we can all live in the world. When you walk in the old growth forest, it's all about love. When you take steps to protect her, it's about justice. This path that we are on, it's about love and justice and the way we can all live in the world. What's it all about? It's all about love. What's it all about? It's about justice. What's it all about? It's about love and justice and the way we can all live in the world. When you write your sweetheart a letter, it's all about love. But the durable power of attorney, it's about justice. It's the present and the future, and it's about love and justice and the way we can all live in the world. When you reach out to your lover, it's all about love. But when you act up, it's about justice. Oh, the quilt and the march, and it's about love and justice and the way we can all live in the world. What's it all about?
It's all about love.
What's it all about?
It's about justice.
What's it all about?
It's about love and justice and the way we can all live in the world.
When you put a daisy in a bayonet, it's all about love. But when you boycott General Electric, it's about justice. It's the power of the heart, and it's about love and justice and the way we can all live in the world. What's it all about? It's all about love. What's it all about? It's about justice. What's it all about? It's about love and justice and the way we can all live in the world. What's it all about? It's all about love. What's it all about? It's about justice. What's it all about? It's about love and justice and the way we can all live in the world.
Welcome, friends. I'm Bobby Trice, the Quaker Engagement Associate at FCNL. And tonight, we're gathering for our July Quaker Changemakers series event, Advocacy in the Arts, with two musician advocates, friend Tom Rawson and lead lobbyist for Middle East policy, Hassan El-Tayyab. We just opened our event with some musical ministry from Tom, a song entitled Love and Justice. As we get settled and wait for other attendees to tune into the webinar, I just want to draw your attention to a few technical features of Zoom. So as a few people have, feel free to use the chat as a space to introduce yourself and interact with one another. A quick note, in order for everyone in the webinar to see your message, you need to change who you're addressing it to in the drop-down menu to all panelists and attendees. As questions come up throughout this conversation, feel free to put them in the chat, and our fearless Annie Chiarazzi, who's running tech, will relay them to our panelists for our Q&A session later on. All right, I think that covers all of my tech pieces. Before we actually begin the event, let's just settle into a moment or two of grounding silence together. Thank you, friends. Welcome again to the latest event in our monthly Quaker Changemakers series, a set of events bringing individual friends witnessing the world into conversation with FCNL's Quaker Advocacy. So tonight, we're elevating the power of creative advocacy in this discussion about music making and making change, a transformative topic for these transformative times. We'll start with some introductions of the speakers and a conversation between panelists for about 25 minutes, and then we'll open it up to the audience for questions. So please continue dropping your questions in the chat as they come up. And then we'll actually conclude with a little bit of live music offered by our panelists and some time to connect you with resources to help you make your advocacy as creative as possible. So at FCNL, we've seen how creative advocacy like baking pea stuff cookies and singing to senators has brought imagination, heart, and humanity to Friends Advocacy with FCNL, and how it has led to major breakthroughs in relationship building and communication with our members of Congress. That's why I'm super excited to introduce our two creative musician advocate panelists, Tom Rawson and Hassan El-Tayyab, and share this conversation about the intersections of creativity, Quaker advocacy, and FCNL's lobbying. So, Tom Rawson is a Quaker, a folk singer, a storyteller, an educator, and an FCNL advocacy team lobbyist from East Sound, Washington. He is also a member of FCNL's General Committee and Field Committee who has served as a visiting friend. He brings his creative perspective to all his work in the world as a friend, a musician, and an ardent advocate for peace and justice in the US and elsewhere in the world. Hassan El-Tayyab is FCNL's lead lobbyist on Middle East policy and a musician. He is also responsible for representing FCNL with the various coalitions that work on these issues. Hassan's passion for foreign affairs is rooted in his desire to make life better for people in the Middle East, including his extended family in Jordan. So, welcome Tom and Hassan. To start us off in this discussion, could you both just share a little bit more about your musical backgrounds and advocacy work? Let's start with Tom and then go to Hassan.
All right, thanks, Bobby. Before I talk about my background, I see a comment in the chat that says, "Dear Tom, I thought that song was Pete Seeger." The song Love and Justice that you heard at the beginning was actually written by Judy Fiel, who lives in Helena, Montana. It's written some great songs, and I learned that from her. My background is that I grew up on Burl Ives and Pete Seeger. From a very early age, I really loved the sound of the banjo and the guitar and people singing together and having hootenannies. And in my early teens, in the late 60s, my parents were political activists working for civil rights legislation and for peace in Vietnam. So I kind of took their lead, and from an early age, I was out knocking on doors urging people to vote for candidates who would end the war in Vietnam. And around this time, you know, the soundtrack of my youth was Bob Dylan and Peter, Paul and Mary, and I really liked the topical music they were singing that was speaking to what was in my heart. And it was sometime after that, my early 20s, when I came out to Seattle from the East Coast, and I got involved in the anti-nuclear movement out here. And there was a fellow named Paul Tinker. His name's now Paul Tinker Hess. He's well known to Quakers on the East Coast. He was a student at Evergreen State College, and he had a banjo, and he was going around at different events, singing some great songs and getting people singing together. And I thought, well, I can do that. So I took up the banjo and learned some songs from Paul, and saw how the music could support my advocacy that way.
Well, thanks. You know, Bob Dylan was the music of my childhood too. I just was kind of a weird kid that really liked to listen to Bob Dylan. So some great stuff there. So my story is maybe a little odd. I studied politics in college. I grew up with my grandparents, and I would sit and watch legislation being made on C-SPAN with my grandfather all the time. I also played guitar. I went to URI and started, you know, learning about U.S. foreign policy and international relations and political science. And to be honest, it kind of depressed me. I learned about war after war after war. Like our entire, everything I was learning was basically about wars that the U.S. had been involved in. And I decided that maybe this whole political thing wasn't for me. But I really did love music, so I started teaching and playing music, doing gigs, local cafes, and toured the country about 8 times as a professional musician over the course of 10 years. And it was interesting because I was teaching in California at a music school, East Bay Center for Performing Arts, and they would send me out into the area. At Steege Elementary was one of the schools I taught at. It was one of the lowest performing schools in one of the lowest performing districts in California. And 95% of the teachers quit basically the year before I got there. There was a lot of poverty. The kids lived right next to an oil refinery and got asthma at higher rates than other kids in the Bay Area as a result. And there was the issue of money in politics. And that kind of sparked me to get back into politics. I wanted to be part of the solution and be part of the change. And I thought, how can we be spending so much money on endless wars and the kids at Steege don't have the things that they need to be successful in school? So I would say it was politics, music, politics, and now I'm doing both, and I'm absolutely loving it. And so glad to be here with all of you today.
Great. Wow. Thank you, Tom and Hassan, for sharing a little bit more about these 2 pieces of your background. I'm going to just ask a question to expand on that a little bit now. So as both creatives and lobbyists, how do your creative perspectives inform your advocacy and vice versa? How does your advocacy inform your creativity, your music? Let's go to Hassan first this time.
So one of the things I really love about working at FCNL is how we incorporate storytelling in all of our lobbying. You know, it's about making a personal connection with staffers, with members of Congress, and using our stories to kind of help facilitate that connection and also really make a point about what brings us to this work. And I think because I was a songwriter, essentially a storyteller, troubadour kind of guy, it just seemed like a natural fit. I'm just telling stories on the Hill about people I care about in the Middle East, about my family sometimes, and trying to make the pitch. And I think one thing that, vice versa, I think I'm starting to write more political songs than I have before. And, you know, using the experiences I'm gaining from, you know, interacting with impacted communities around the world in the Middle East and beyond, and trying to incorporate that in my creativity.
And how about you, Tom?
Yeah, you know, I know it's not linear. It's circular, and all mixed up, but I really identify this more how the advocacy influences the music. And especially what I've learned about advocacy from being a Quaker for 40 years and being involved with the FCNL is it's a special kind of advocacy in which the idea is to build people up and to create dialogue and communication, following the creed of George Fox, who said to see that of God in each person. And that's really transferred over to my music, in that I want the music that I do to be uplifting, to be healing, to be life affirming, and not shaming. And so I'm sure it circles back, it cycles back, but definitely the Quaker advocacy has had that very positive effect on my music.
Wonderful. So both of you are working to end and prevent wars in the Middle East. Tom, through the advocacy teams program at FCNL, and Hassan through your professional lobbying for FCNL. Given these experiences, how have you two seen creativity and music show up in your advocacy to end endless war? Tom, do you want to start with that?
Sure. Well, I've never sung the lobby visit, although I understand that's happened. People have sung to their senators before, but I haven't done that one yet. But certainly the music, I use the music and participate with others using the music to build community. And I sing at a lot of conferences and events, rallies in support of the causes that I care about. And one of the most fun gigs I ever had was at the FCNL annual meeting in 2016. Every fall in November usually, hundreds of Quakers from all over the country come to Washington, DC to lobby, and then also to attend to the business of the organization. And 4 years ago, we began that 4-day conference with a sing-along, and I was the song leader. And we had just so much fun singing. We did a lot of topical songs and songs about the issues that we care about. We also did a lot of fun songs, and people were popping up and down out of their chairs and things. So I was a first grade teacher for 30 years, so that influence kind of sneaks into my music occasionally. So that's it.
So I've got two stories. One connects to the Middle East and one connects to my work at FCNL here. When I think it was maybe 2008, I actually traveled to the Middle East for the first time as an adult and visited my family in Jordan. It was really wonderful. And I was kind of getting a little tired of eating the same food every single day. The food was delicious, but I just want a little variety. So I asked my dad, I'm like, hey Dad, can we go downtown Madaba and maybe switch it up? And he said, sure, go, wait outside. My cousin had a tour bus. I jump on, and, this is 8 a.m. And all of a sudden all my relatives start piling on. 40 of my relatives from Jordan piled onto the bus. And we sang songs all the way downtown Madaba. And I was teaching them Hit the Road Jack, and they were teaching me Bedouin coffee songs. And it's something about that experience that just stayed with me. How unfortunately, I don't speak Arabic very well, and they don't speak English very well, but we were able to have this really amazing cultural connection that I just want to take into my advocacy. I mean, we're all people, and we're all in this together, and, I just try to bring that message of love and unity in my lobby visits, and try to give personal experiences to staffers and members to let them know that, we have to break down some of these walls and see these folks as people and not statistics. And as far as some of my work with Quakers and how I've seen it show up here, it's been pretty wonderful. I grew up in Massachusetts, and while I was visiting my mom in this past year, I did a little concert for the Cambridge Meeting House, and it was really wonderful. They opened up their doors to activists from all over the community, not just Quakers, but we had Massachusetts Peace Action, just other, the Raytheon anti weapons campaign. I forget exactly what they're called, forgive me, but they do some really amazing advocacy around ending weapon sales and pushing back on Raytheon a bit. And I played a couple tunes. We had a little debrief about the NDAA, and that again, we kind of, music sort of stitched this all together. And I think it was, I need more of that in my life.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much. I've got a question for Tom now. You recently started and joined an advocacy team with FCNL. Could you speak to that experience a little bit and how creativity may or may not be present in your work with the advocacy team?
Okay. Yes, it's been very exciting. I live on an island. It takes an hour to get here on the ferry. And for the longest time, I resisted starting an advocacy team. Even the organizer at FCNL kept bugging me about it. And I was afraid that it wouldn't work because we were so isolated up here, but it's actually worked very well. We, especially because everybody is so proficient using Zoom now. We had our first lobby visit about a month ago, and the team really has a lot of energy, so we're having a lot of fun. In terms of how my art affects that, not directly. We don't sing at our meetings, but we sing at other times. So we've built a community already, and music's been a part of that community, and so that's helped build our advocacy team.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom. Now, Hassan, you've worked a little bit with advocacy teams because of your portfolio and the shared focus on ending endless war in the Middle East. Could you share a little bit about your experience working with the teams and how you've seen creativity pop up in that work?
Absolutely. This is a creative network, and it's been honestly, excuse me, it's been an absolute honor to be able to work with the advocacy teams across the country on preventing war with Iran and trying to promote diplomacy. I just look forward to it every month. And the questions are just so thoughtful. And on top of the actual meetings we do nationally, I've been interacting on, with different advocacy teams around the country, trying to support their lobby visits however I can. Either sometimes folks will email me or ask me to come join them for a visit. So it's just been, to me, it kind of reminds me of being a full-time musician in a way, like connecting with people around the country and sharing our stories with people. And I just think it's been fantastic. I mean, today I was working with Raylene and a whole team from Kalamazoo, Michigan. They wrote their own, they're very creative. They wrote their own letter. They got about 40 Quakers from the Michigan area to sign on. And they scheduled 2 pretty fantastic visits with Senator Stabenow and Senator Peters, and trying to make sure that they speak out against unilateral annexation of the West Bank. And I think to pull together something like that, pull together all those people in that letter, I think it takes a lot of creativity. So it's been wonderful to be part of that.
Absolutely. Thank you both so much for speaking to your experiences collaborating with advocacy teams. Tom, for you, I'm curious to hear your perspective on what's so Quaker about creative advocacy.
When I think about being a Quaker, it's about opening my heart and my mind to what Ken Jacobson calls surprises of the spirit, and doing that in community. And that's the same approach I bring to my performance art. When I get up to perform or to lead a sing-along with a group, I don't know every note that I'm going to play or every word that I'm going to sing. That builds between me and the audience. And so it's that sort of same openness to spirit takes place in the openness to creativity. It's also, the similarity is about relationships. Quaker advocacy is about building relationships with legislators, and performance art is about building relationships with your audience. And if you build a good relationship, they'll keep coming back. They want to sing some more and hear some more. You build a good relationship with your legislators, it pays off. I had a very interesting experience since I've been going to DC several times a year now to do FCNL business. I've had many occasions to lobby in the office of Congressman Rick Larson. And last January I was there, and I was in his office talking to one of his staff people. He was too busy to meet with me. They were dealing with a war powers resolution that day, actually, something that FCNL was supporting. And Congressman Larson just happened to walk into the office while I was there talking to his staff person. He made a point of coming over to me because he had remembered our previous visits. And he said, "It's so good to see you. I'm sorry I couldn't meet with you today. You might have heard we're kind of busy. Why don't you come back sometime when we're naming post offices? I'll have more time to meet with you." So that just really showed me that this building relationships over time really pays off.
Absolutely, it really does. And creativity and music and other forms of bringing in that human expression are ways that we can enhance relationship building. I think I have one last planned question for you both before I turn it to the audience to answer some of the great questions we've been getting in. And that is, what words of wisdom or advice would you give our audience if they're looking to bring creativity into their advocacy? How would you advise them to do that? Well, what perspective can you share with them to encourage them to bring that creative perspective into their relationship building and advocacy?
Do you want me to go, or Tom, would you like to go first?
Sure. I just say keep writing new verses to old songs. You know, there's a rich repertoire of old gospel songs that then became labor songs, that then became civil rights songs, and that's the beauty of them. They're folk songs that have evolved over the years, and they work great for group singing and building community, and you can update them. So that's my urge to people.
I would second that, first off. And I would just say we're in a really hard moment right now. and I think we need to kind of take care of ourselves. And music is one of the best ways I know of keeping myself centered, so I can keep doing this work, which is really stressful and challenging. And so I would say definitely keep the music to keep yourself whole, you know, listening to it, supporting others, and, you know, playing it yourself, and also use it as a tool to build our power and our network, and to build our ability to influence lawmakers. In Chicago, before I came to FCNL, I was the director of Chicago Area Peace Action, and once a year or once every 2 years, we would do this large scale music event, and I would invite all the local musicians. We rented out this big church, this Mennonite church, Reba Place Church in Chicago, if anyone's been there, and like 200 or 300 people would come, and it helped financially sustain the organization, but it also really increased our network dramatically. And we brought in a diverse group of people, young people, people of color. We brought in, people of faith, other peace activists, and music was the centerpiece of it all. And so I just took from that it has an amazing potential to grow our power in the peace movement.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for those closing perspectives on the planned questions, Hassan and Tom. Definitely music has an invitational quality to it that brings people into the doors, and like you both said, acts as a glue to keep us together in community and sustain ourselves as we're doing this really difficult work. So I'm going to pivot to our Q&A with the audience now. Keep dropping your questions in the chat, y'all. We've got a bunch coming through that look really great. And so our first question actually comes from our very own Diane Randall, who says, "Thanks so much for sharing your stories and music," and asks, "How has living in this pandemic affected your music, given you don't have an audience to interact with in person?" Tom?
Yes, that has been very interesting. I've led some sing-alongs via Zoom. It is a very different experience. it actually works better than I thought it would, but there's something lacking in terms of being able to build off the energy in the room. But it works. I think the funniest experience I had was when I was at a sea shanty sing. And of course, you know, the problem is they have to mute everybody except for the song leader. Well, in a sea shanty, the song leader only sings half the song. So I'd give my line and I'd wait for the heave away, haul away, and I couldn't hear it because everybody's muted. But you learn to make do. And we just had our North Pacific yearly meeting last week via Zoom. And I was really surprised how well it worked to have people connected. And in fact, we did a lot of singing together. Every morning there was a song session, and then there was the community night. And so while it wasn't the same, I'd much rather be in person. We're making it work.
So I want to answer for myself and then kind of talk about the larger music community that I'm really concerned about right now. For myself, I wrote a song called the COVID-19 Blues. So there's been a little bit of inspiration there. Been reading and writing a lot and trying to play. And I've done a few concerts in my front yard, like just sitting there playing. People are walking by, which has been really fun. Done a little bit on Zoom, playing for my roommates and such. So that's been wonderful. But Diane raises a really important point that I think is worth mentioning, is that it's really difficult right now for professional musicians all over the country. And I was a full-time professional musician touring, you know, for almost 10 years, and my heart goes out to them. So anything that our network can do to support people that are full-time working musicians. I mean, not everybody's Beyonce. You know, they're like, I can't even imagine right now if I was still a full-time musician. So like I said, anything we can do to support the arts. One thing that I'm really proud of FCNL for doing is try to extend emergency unemployment insurance benefits, which musicians all across the country, not just musicians, but the stagehands, you know, all the folks that are surrounding the music industry, and they need our help right now. So I just wanted to make that pitch.
Absolutely. Our next question comes from Deb Hale, who says, "Music moves my heart in ways that words cannot. What songs touch your heart?"
Tom, you got to go first on this one.
Okay, well, gosh, I could just bring up my set lists or my song lists. There's just so many. There's so many songwriters out here in the Northwest where I live who touch my heart. I sing their songs, T.R. Ritchie's songs, the late T.R. Ritchie and Rob Lopresti. Yeah, all the old gospel songs, so many songs touch my heart. It's just so hard to limit it.
This is very different. That's what I wanted you to go first, because I have so many songs that I just love so much. You know, some artists like James Taylor, Bill Withers, Stevie Wonder. You know, one song that really just, you know, kind of knocks me out there is "Isn't She Lovely?" and the whole Songs in the Key of Life album. Oh my God, it's just so wonderful and so expressive. And I'm going to stop there, except I'm going to say one more. I really love Bill Withers' stuff, like "Lean on Me." There's this other deep cut that he did, "Heartbreak Road." And not a lot of people actually even know that one, but he can say so much with so little. I love that guy.
Great. So on to our next question. It comes from Jasmine Kratkov, and it's for Tom. It says, "Tom, when you play your music, you always smile, laugh, and look joyful. Often, you sing about issues that are depressing. How do these two emotional states manifest in your creativity?"
Wow. Well, I hope I'm not conveying two opposite emotions with by projecting one expression and having the content cancel it out or anything. But as I said earlier when we were talking that what I really try to do is use music to lift people up and to lift myself up, lift up my own emotions. And so I don't think it's really in conflict. I think a lot of the songs that I sing about that are about depressing things are about hopeful solutions to depressing things, or ways that we can empower ourselves to meet things that are depressing. So I hope it's a very consistent message of hope and affirmation.
Thank you, Tom. And a similar question for Hassan from Carl Abbott. Carl asks, can you describe the style of music that you play and toured with, Hassan?
Yeah, my band was called American Nomad. It was singer-songwriter, acoustic folk music. Some described this as Americana with groove. And some, so I would tour either solo as Hassan El-Tayyab or with the band American Nomad. We did play Telluride Bluegrass Festival one time. We did this bluegrass circuit up in Alaska. I've been to every state in the country except Hawaii. I got to get out there at some point, but we did Strawberry Music Festival, which was really fun. Joe Val Bluegrass Festival. So that kind of scene.
Thank you so much. Our next question comes from Roger Holdstock, who asks, I see that you've both had East Coast experience and West Coast experience. Have you found Quaker activism different in the two regions? And if so, how would you characterize that difference?
Well, I could start. Most of my experience has been on the West Coast, but now that I've spent so much time at FCNL, I've gotten to meet activists from all over the country, and I don't really see a very big difference. I mean, there are some issues in different parts of the country that are more important locally than others, but I think there's the general feeling I get is that Quaker activists throughout the country are very committed to the process of discerning what is important to people and then communicating that to Congress and doing it in a way that's respectful and builds a dialogue and builds a relationship over time. I think it's the same on both coasts and in the Midwest and everywhere.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective on that one, Tom. We're going to go to our next question from Tom Vaughn, who asks, our mission statement, the world we seek, makes no mention of music, art, and the products of the creative spirit. That suggests that the world we seek is one of social and economic justice, but it would be gray and silent. Should we try to incorporate support for the creative spirit into the world we seek, and how could we do it?
I would just ask if he plays guitar and if he wants to jam sometime.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm just thinking we just revised The World We Seek. I think the next revision is not for about 4 or 5 years, but that'll give us time to get some good language into it that can reflect this.
All right, moving on to our next question. Doreen Cornwell asks, in Washington, we have a statewide Quaker lobby now called Quaker Voice. Tom, how does your experience contribute to work with FCNL? And Hassan, do you have any similar experience in reference to the state-based lobby?
Sorry. The issues are different statewide and federal, but the approach is the same. And in fact, I'm always learning about lobbying. I'm always learning about Quaker lobbying. I'm always learning about building relationships. Even though I'm telling you about it now, it's something that I have to think about and center myself every time I do it. And so I'm very very grateful to have the opportunity to lobby on both the state and federal level. And it's about building relationships, and I've done it over time. That's really all I can say.
You know, I would just second what Tom said, you know, and it's about building relationships and, you know, building long-term relationships. And I think it's wonderful how music can facilitate that and advance the important work that we're doing.
Thank you, Tom and Hassan. So on to our next audience question from Jonathan Betz-All, who asks, Congressman Larson is relatively open to Friends' traditional positions. How do you work with those who are not so open? How does music or art help? Tom, do you want to respond to this one first?
Sure. How do you work with those who are not so open? Just what we've been saying throughout this program. Tell your story, tell it respectfully, listen, and you may not get the result you want, but down the road, you're going to leave a good feeling with somebody, and that may affect something else they do. How does music and art affect that? I think, as Hassan said earlier, is that the more we engage in the art that builds up our own spirits and builds up our communities, the better able we are to communicate with people of all political persuasions.
If I'm not mistaken, Congressman Larson plays banjo, right?
Well, I didn't know that, Hassan. That'll give me a good in the next time I go to visit him.
So it might have been someone else, but I recall, I thought it was him. I went to his office and I saw a banjo just sitting there tucked in the corner. And I always notice when an office has a musical instrument there. And Tom, I would definitely recommend you bring your banjo in the next lobby visit you do.
I'm going to do that for sure.
Even if he doesn't play, just you know.
Thank you both so much. So on to our next question. Kitty Martin asks, are there any profound moments you've experienced with your music that you could share?
I like Tom going first, actually. It helps me.
Okay.
It helps me think of my. He answers them so well. It gives me help.
Thank you, Hassan. And it's good. I do have something does come to mind immediately for me on this. I had one experience once that shows me the power of music, not just to connect people, but to perhaps influence people. I was at a vigil at a nuclear submarine base where hundreds of people were waiting for a train that was carrying atomic bombs. And they were going to sit on the tracks and get arrested for civil disobedience to resist the deployment of nuclear weapons. And there were some counter demonstrators there. And there was about, I don't know, 3 or 4 guys, and they were hanging signs saying, "Tell it to the Russians," or something like that. And I engaged in a little bit of conversation with these guys. It was very respectful. But then while we were waiting for the train, you know, they don't announce the train schedule to the protesters. And we were waiting for hours and hours and hours. And to pass the time, we were singing, and we were singing the love round. And hundreds of people were just singing, "Love, love, love, love. People, we were made for love." Round and round and round for hours and hours. And I looked over, and this guy holding the sign was sitting there going, "Love, love, love, love." So the music seeped into his consciousness. And I don't know if we changed his mind on anything, but hopefully it changed his heart.
Thanks, Tom. Let's see. I think we're going to go on to our next question now. Someone has asked, have either of you done live streaming on Facebook or elsewhere? But unless Hassan, did you want to respond to that last question?
Yeah, sorry, my internet got a little funky there for a quick sec. I hope my face didn't get paused in an awkward position. Probably did. I have a lot of them. So I I went to Hiroshima and Nagasaki on the anniversary of the bombings in 2018 to represent the Peace Action Network and to speak on, yeah, on the anniversary of the bombings. And so I did a lot of like lectures stuff and some circuits there. And in Nagasaki, I played the closing ceremony. I gave a speech about my grandfather, who actually was a glider pilot in World War II, and was about to invade Japan before the atomic bombs went off in Japan and the war ended. And then I sang this song I wrote called In the Folds. And it was about 2,000 people in the audience, and it just kind of blew me away. And I can't even, there was somebody there that had literally experienced the nuclear attack. They're called hibakusha, people that have survived. And it's just was such a profound experience, and it was so humbling. One young man came up to me after the performance, and he said, in Japan, we're not really allowed to, boys aren't really encouraged to sing. And I was just really inspired, because I love singing. And then, so I gave him a CD, and it was just, I don't know, it's just a very memorable experience. I could go on there, but yeah, it was just really profound and again, I think for me, when I can, connect with other cultures, even when there are, language barriers, that to me is just so profound and wonderful.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing those two profound stories. I love hearing them. So our next question comes from Nessia Quast, who asks, have either of you done live streaming on Facebook or elsewhere? Live streaming music, I'm assuming.
I have not. No.
I have.
It might come to that point, but I haven't done it yet.
I did one time. It feels a little awkward to me, but but it's but it's a good way to reach people, and some people do it all the time. And a lot of my musician friends are, they do these happy hours, and it's actually how they're paying their rent right now. So.
Got it. Well, it looks like we just have a few more questions, and then we get to hear some live music from Hassan and Tom. I'm so excited. All right, so Fatima asks, do either of you prefer to lobby with a group or individually? What situations would you prefer lobbying with a group rather than lobbying individually?
I'll take that. I much prefer lobbying with a group. And what groups do I lobby with? Well, I lobby with my advocacy team now. Like I said, we've had our first visit. And I lobby with the FCNL lobbyists. That's always great. I'll also lobby with other groups like the National Association of Railroad Passengers. But yeah, group is always prefer a group to individual. I think you build energy, and somebody might remember something that you forgot, and I think you have a little more clout with a few more people.
I would second that 100%. I love lobbying with groups. I love lobbying with the FCNL advocacy teams when I'm lucky enough to get invited. When it kind of makes sense. Today, our meeting with Stabenow was wonderful, and not with Stabenow, with her foreign policy affairs staffer. But yeah, it's just really great, and I especially love when there can be like a diverse coalition of groups. The meeting today, we had sort of an interfaith coalition. There were Quakers. There were, I think it was a Catholic on the call. There was some people of the Jewish faith, and I think that kind of interfaith coalition is really powerful to bring a message of like wanting to prevent U.S. funds from being used to annex parts of the West Bank. I think that's just such a powerful statement for a lawmaker to hear.
Thank you both so much. I'm going to ask our last question from the audience of the night, and then we can hear some live music from you two. So Fridays for the Future USA says, we have performed for congressional offices many times, doing song parodies, including climate change carols. The response has been fantastic. Does anyone know if it is legal to perform in the common areas of the House and Senate office buildings? Those areas would be great for ongoing advocacy concerts. So I guess first off, do either of you know if it's legal to perform in those common areas? And second, I would love to just hear your response to this fantastic mode of creative advocacy engagement.
Maybe I can jump on that first. I know what I'm going to be doing after the pandemic is just trying it out. Let's see what happens. And that, especially in the Hart building, there's just, the ceiling is just so high. I bet the acoustics would be so great in that space. I don't see why not, really, as long, you know. But again, I'm not an authority on this subject. I haven't tried it, and to be determined. Maybe Tom knows.
Yeah, I don't know what the regulations are. I know I have brought my banjo to the state capitol in Olympia, Washington, and we've done some rowdy sing-alongs, you know, within about earshot of the governor, and they never kicked us out. But I don't know about the federal facilities.
I did one at the State House in Illinois, in Springfield. I sang, "This land, you know, this land is your land," which was really fun, with probably about 100 activists outside the governor's office asking to, you know, trying to divest from the war machine, which was pretty fun.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both so much for being a part of this discussion and Q&A with our audience. It sounds like we're all going to have to go to the Capitol and try to have a concert one of these days. Looks like a post-pandemic project. I think with that, I'll turn it to Hassan to share a closing song. And if you have any closing words for the audience, that would be great. And then we'll hear from Tom after that. Right, Hassan, you might have to unmute yourself and then we'll be good to go.
You know, let me try to think. Tom is probably better at saying something profound, but I would just say that I hope everyone's taking care of themselves and their loved ones, using music, and hopefully using music to sort of take care of your spirit and the spirit of your community right now. And I'm with you here, and let's play some tunes. I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside. I'm gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. I'm gonna stick my sword in the golden sand down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna stick my sword in the golden sand down by the riverside. I'm gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. 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 I'm gonna put on that
And a virtual round of applause from the audience out there. Thank you so much, Hassan. That was fabulous. Looks like our audience is cheering you on from the chat as well. Let's go to Tom now to play a song for us as well.
All right, thanks so much, Hassan. That was great. And before I start, I want to mention there was a comment in the chat from Carl Abbott of Portland about a songwriter in Portland, Anna Fritz. And Carl mentioned that Anna has a musical ministry, and I can't recommend it enough. A great songwriter, and she writes songs that are great for group singing and bringing people together. So if you get a chance to hear Anna Fritz do that. This song I'm going to sing now was written by Jan Harmon from Camden, Maine. Let us take a walk together, now it is begun, for it's when we all can walk together that peace will come. Let's have a late night talk together. Let's have a late night talk together. Now it has begun. Now it is begun. For it's when we all can talk together that peace will come. Let us plant some seeds together. Let us plant some seeds together. Now it is begun. For it's when we plant some seeds together that peace will come. And this is another one of those songs you can just write your own verses. Let's go talk to our representatives together. Now it is begun, for it's when we talk to our representatives together that peace will come. Let us share some dreams together. Let us share some dreams together. Now it is begun, for it's when we share some dreams together that peace will come. Let us take a walk together. Let us take a walk together. Now it is begun, for it's when we all can walk together that peace will come.
Woo!
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tom and Hassan. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your perspectives, your music with us. It has been amazing. So to the audience, that does conclude our Advocacy in the Arts event discussion, but we're not quite done with the excitement yet. So our website is actually filled with additional resources for learning more and tools for taking action. So I'm going to share my screen and take you on a very brief tour of our website and show you how you can help bring about the world we seek and help make a difference right from home during the pandemic. All right, sharing my screen. So first, I am going to navigate to our creative advocacy landing page on FCNL. I can do that by just searching FCNL creative advocacy. And it'll be the first search result that pops up right there. And here, this page is really a clearinghouse of all of our writing background resources and advocacy tools on creative advocacy. So we have lots of content on the benefits of bringing creativity into your advocacy and some stories of how other folks have done it so that you can get inspired and try to develop your own creative advocacy action. So I also wanted to show everyone our new Action Alert Center for taking online action and communicating with Congress. So I can navigate to that resource by going to fcnl.org/Congress. And from there, it pulls up a bunch of different action alerts. And I'm actually going to open up the one on no war with Iran, because that's most relevant to Tom and Hassan's work lobbying to end endless war. So after I've put in my info, this awesome tool connects me directly with my representatives' offices and allows me to communicate with them directly. So here on a given action alert, I can see a call to action with the focus of this alert: tell Congress no war with Iran. And it describes a little bit about the legislation that we're asking for our representatives to support. And then here you have form letters with talking points produced by FCNL on this topic. And this is really just a template designed for advocates to modify before sending, because we have really excellent research by the Congressional Management Foundation indicating that the more personalized your email or letter is, the more impact it has on changing your officials' minds about a policy decision. So I've gone ahead and edited my form letter on the next screen just by changing the subject line a little bit and adding a little paragraph about who I am and why I care about preventing war with Iran. And then I'm ready to hit send at the bottom of the screen and send that off to my members of Congress. Taking action is as easy as a couple of minutes in front of your computer and can really make a difference when we raise our voices together. And then I also wanted to show you our new Lobby from Home page that has all of our resources for learning how to do a virtual lobby visit if you're new to that mode of advocacy. So I'll find this by navigating to fcnl.org/lobbyfromhome. And here, like I said, we have several different resources that you can use to put your faith into action and lobby by phone right now. So if you're, what we're really asking folks to do, if you're ready to take that next step and lobby on an issue of concern to you, you can go ahead and fill out this first form on that page, which looks a little like this. And a staff member from FCNL's organizing team will be right in touch with you to help you schedule a visit and prepare for it. So we have got your back. We are here to support you in your advocacy. And we really just want to help you advocate on anything that is of concern to you right now. So I think that wraps up my little web tour for the moment. I wanted to say thank you again so much to our panelists for being on and for being a part of this informative, insightful, and musical session together. And thank you so much to our audience for participating with energy and excitement and creativity of your own. As I close out here, I just hope that you'll save the date for our next Quaker Changemakers series event in August. It'll be called Teaching Advocacy with Lauren Brownlee and Welling Hall, and we'll talk about the intersections of FCNL's advocacy work and civic education and engagement with students at every level across the country. Remember, together we can creatively make change to bring about peace in our nation and our world. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Ever faithfully onward we go, and let's hear a closing song from Hassan to play us out.
A midnight drive to the city limit line. I tell myself this time I will keep going, rolling away from what's not right. And the California coast looks beautiful tonight. Well, all my questions with no clear answers, and all my worries are bouncing off these rails. And if I bet much more, I'll break. I'm at the limit of what I can take. Problems that belong to me will always wait for me, but tonight I belong to the night. I'll let it ride. Ooh. Something about this perpetual motion, it doesn't feel like I'm spinning my wheels, and all these highway sounds seem to calm me down. It's been too long since I have left this town. I'm all alone, but I don't feel lonely, while the whole world is sleeping in their beds, missing a bowl of stars so bright. Well, I'm feeling blessed for this new moon tonight. Problems that belong to me will always wait for me, but too